Hello, and thank you for being here. Welcome. My name is Dr. Divi, and I'm your podcast host for the podcast Shift Happens. Today, we're going to be talking about the mechanistic view of the body. I trust that this podcast will help you, and I would love it if you shared it with others, give me a good review, and left a comment below. That apparently increases the traction of this. You'll also see that there's an article here on Substack that you could read as well. The reason I share this about the mechanistic view of the body is because it's a topic that's very, very dear to my heart. This might be the first time you're listening to me or you've listened to me 1,000 times. As you may know, I'm a physician turned intuitive spiritual teacher. People ask me all the time in interviews and different events I do, why would you leave being a family doctor to do what you do for work? And yes, I have my own journey of being sick, conventional work not working, going on what I call the inner path, not knowing what the inner path was, and healing. And then the next part of it, waking up my intuition, helping thousands of others. That's the nuts and bolts, a bit longer than that, obviously. But I'm a firm believer that is more to healing than just the antibiotics. I'm a firm believer that there's much more to the healing than just the remedy. I'm a firm believer that whatever illness you suffer from can be healed. I'm a firm believer that the body is speaking to us because of a thought process in the mind. That is what I believe. So let's dive in deeper. You may or may not know, but our current medical system is what's called a mechanistic. Since before the invention of penicillin, which was in the 1940s, they invented the stethoscope and all kinds of different things. And they thought the body was purely physical. And prior to that, there was a belief that the body was, energy or thought form or shiftable. And after the mechanistic view of medicine came in, then there was a big wave to everything being mechanistic. What do I mean by that? That means looking outside the body to go, okay, this is what's wrong with your heart. This is what's wrong with your lungs. This is what's wrong with your brain. Simply looking at the physical matter. Now, one thing I will make really clear before I go deeper is there's nothing wrong with that approach. That's a beautiful approach. And if anything, it buys us a bit of time. Let's just say I had a rip-roaring pneumonia. In the olden days, before antibiotics, I would have died. I have relatives that had died from pneumonias. And now we can stay alive longer with antibiotics, surgery for other illnesses, and so on and so forth. But what our mechanistic view of society of medicine has taught us is it's taught us that that's the only approach. And it's almost like there's two boxes, the mechanistic view and then the other, everything else. I believe a bridge can occur between the two. I believe the mechanistic is super important to buy us some time, to help us, to give us some relief. But I don't believe the final journey ends there. Let's look at the other approach. These approaches, again, are not contradictory. They are actually hand in hand. By now, 2026, most of us have heard of the conversation of mind-body. Yoga studios are everywhere. And the thing about mind-body is there's this idea that the thoughts influence the body. What happens instantly that you hear that is you have a degree of blame or shame. The thought comes in that you caused that. And that often gets people stuck for days, weeks, decades, years, sometimes even their whole lifetime. So that's a loophole that you want to watch out for. The joke I always make is that our subconscious and unconscious patterns are the reason that we have this illness. And those subconscious and unconscious patterns are definitely because of my childhood, but also because of stuff my parents didn't sort out, stuff that my culture taught me, stuff that society taught me. And I have to work through that. So I jokingly say, it's got nothing to do with me. I was born into it. So when you're stuck on that first step of a bit of blame, try to see if you can move past that. The second thing we want to realize in mind, so the first thing we want to realize is to not blame or shame ourselves. The second thing we want to realize that when we develop an illness, that yes, this mechanistic view is amazing. I'm not going to push it away. It might help me. Amazing. But the second thing is, I look at this illness as a chance to learn. I get to learn deeper parts of my psyche, deeper parts of who I am, and deeper parts of my awareness. And if I'm willing to do that, magic could unfold. If I'm willing to look that, okay, maybe there's a thought, conscious, subconscious, unconscious here, I just have to dig for it. So this is a learning opportunity. The third thing is I tend to look at it as a journey. It's not something I'm going to learn, be done like a PhD, and be good for the rest of my life. It's a journey. What a lot of people do when it comes to healing something, they've heard a bit of mind body. They're like, okay, let me go figure it out. And that actually often ends up like a dead end alley, as opposed to the journey of it. So my life is the journey to healing that back pain. My life is the journey to healing that infection. So we're not going to make that infection wrong or that back pain wrong, but I'm going to look at the journey of life. I'll look at my marriages, my relationships, all my patterns in life as being part and parcel of what the health issues destroy me. The fourth thing I say to myself is this is a chance to deeply get to know myself. And when I say I know myself, like I just alluded to, I get to know my thoughts, but not only do I get to know my thoughts, I get to move from just mind body medicine to mind body spirit medicine. And mind body spirit, you don't see talked about very often, but we all heard those words: mind body spirit, mind body spirit. The moving into spirit is the most important part of the healing and the one that's ignored the most often. Because if we don't open up to spirit, it's like we're walking around in a mouse trap, trying to find our way out and just walking into walls, walking into walls, walking into walls. The mind is phenomenal. Understanding the body is phenomenal. But when I open the door to spirit, there is so much more possibilities. And now we're going to spend the last 5 or 10 minutes of this podcast going really deep. So to enter the world of spirit, we have to know that there's an energy within us that loves us unconditionally. And that energy is often called love, called spirit, called the universe, called the divine, called many different names. Some people even call it God. But there's an energy of love that is available to us all the time. And this energy of love is available for us 24/7. Now, to really dive into spirit work, we have to understand that this energy of love is not outside of us. It's not on planet Mars as I sit here in Earth. Spirit is part of me, and I am part of spirit. The universe is not out there and I'm in here. Spirit and I are one. Let's make that a little bit more accessible for you. If you've ever had a really crappy day and then hiked a mountain or gone for a run or gone for a walk, walked along the beach, all of a sudden you feel a bit better. That's a shift, right? You had a crappy day, you're in the tailspin, momentum downward about thoughts. And you did something small, like go for a walk. And out of nowhere, the mind quiets. How does that happen? It happens because the mind of spirit rests in you. Said it differently, the mind of love rests in you. And probably for the majority of people listening to this, this might be a new concept. But here's the deal. If you actually want to heal, we have to open that doorway, because that doorway opens us up to love. Like, okay, Divi, so what? And I'm not talking the love you might have for your partner or your kid. I'm talking the unconditional love that the universe has for you, the unconditional love that spirit has for you. Probably like you might feel towards your animals. Spirit loves you times a billion, times a trillion. So if you're open to that, then you have to be open to that voice resides in me. And as I get to know that voice better, then I can heal the thoughts that are in my conscious and subconscious that say, I don't do enough, I did it wrong, women don't count, men aren't important, or whatever the thought is. And the more I trust spirit, the more the healing journey gets easier and easier and easier. Now, the last thing I'll say about spirit is that it is only the energy of love. And you get to know it when you quiet your mind. You get to know it when you wake up that mind. You get to know it because that is who your true essence is. The ego thought system that got us into this trouble of this illness only wants to judge, wants to blame, wants to create havoc, wants to separate. And spirit wants to heal, wants you to know of infinite possibilities, and wants you to know that there's that you are whole and loved. And here's where I'm going to end this podcast. Our mechanistic view of society, of healthcare, believes it's a constant lack. You don't have enough air in your lungs. Your body's making you sick. There's lack. When you open up the door to spirit, you get exposed to this idea that there's infinite. But the thing is, it can't just be a conceptual idea. It has to be an energetic, felt idea that there's infinite love, infinite possibilities. And when I'll go through the 4 things I talked about. Number 1, you didn't do anything wrong. How could you? You're an infinite being. Number 2, this is a learning. Oh God, infinite learning about my spirit realm. Infinite learning. This is a journey. Oh, great. This is a journey. The universe has my back. I can feel that. And the last one, this is to get to know myself deeply, get to know my thoughts, the lies I've told myself. At the same time, get to know my truth. Because the truth is I am infinite. The truth is, if I knew how infinite love I am, I would never doubt myself. And as I open that door, what healing possibilities are there? Let's just take a breath with that. So much good stuff here. Lack is impossible. Healing is available as we shift out of the shame and the guilt into the infinite possibilities of who we are. As I wind down this podcast, I really hope this helped you and supported you on your journey. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to me for the last 14 minutes. I always try in my podcast to share what's going on with me. Coming up in the month of August 2026, I actually have 3 workshops on health coming up about finding the root causes of our illness. So I've got 1 in person in Vancouver, 1 on Zoom, and 1 in Squamish. They're all going to be phenomenal. They're on my website. To cap it all off, I've got a retreat coming up in Whistler. I would love to have you any of these advance or join me for my group coaching that I do online. And I have a group in person in Vancouver as well, but I would love to have you for any of these events. Let us heal together. Healing is not a solo journey. It's a collective. As I heal, you heal. As you heal, I heal. I am sending you so much love and so much gratitude. And please share this with anyone that you feel could benefit and leave me a lovely review. And share a comment because that increases the traction. Thank you again. Loads of love.